We're here at West Point for the start of the 50th reunion of the class of 1959, a class for which I feel a very close connection. They were GAR's boys. My dad, Garrison Davidson, superintendent of the military academy. Mikey Stadium, home of many Army heroes, including number 24. Gar Davidson scored the first touchdown in Mikey Stadium on the day it was dedicated in 1923 or 4, I believe. Home of the heroes. Doc Blanchard, who just left us. Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Davis, Pete, and Don Hollader, one of the great heroes of West Point. How many gallons in there, gentlemen? The unbroken chain of 2 centuries plus that you men represent so well. Hallowed ground. Without the moral underpinnings, all the rest would be meaningless. We turn to our God. Through peace and war. So in this resting place of West Pointers, heroes of all kinds, including those who gave their lives for the country, including George Goethals, Ed White, Lucius Clay, Ed White Sr., General William Westmoreland, many members of the academic board who were here when your classes were here. Billingsley, Renfro, Stevens, Schick, Barrett, Stamps, Counts, Gillette, Esposito, Bill Bessel, professor of math and then dean of the academic board, and those who gave their lives for their country in battle, the most honored of all, those of your classmates who were in their final resting places, being able to say, well done. Being part of the long gray line, having taken their place, being the shoulders on which the young men and women in Iraq and Afghanistan stand tall, and upon which the fundamental defense of our country will go on as long as needed. God bless all of you, men and their women of the Military Academy and West Point. Be it be said, well done. One of my favorite words. Gar Davidson would say that this is one of the most important. Compassion or consideration of your fellow man. And another. And yet another.
During the Revolutionary War, a chain was strung from West Point to Constitution Island to prevent the British warships from coming down the Hudson. There's the chain, and there's one of the cannons guarding West Point.
Some things you don't need words for. Another well-known grad who eventually became
the brand new Jefferson Library on the plain. Gentlemen, your superintendent, he was so proud of the way you took your place in the long gray line.
I know Guard Davidson never thought that the honor code went far enough, that these were the things that no good man would do. But honor demands beyond this. MacArthur probably said it as well as anyone from his talk in 1962 accepting the Thayer Award. And Barbara Jordan, those of you who will accomplish great things will achieve the elevation of character that constitutes honor. If you do not develop honor, if you do not embrace the finest sense of justice that a human mind can frame, you will not be worthy of the confidence West Point and your country will place in you. From the cadet prayer, make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half-truth when the whole can be won. And from Robert E. Lee, there is a true glory and a true honor, the glory of duty done, the honor of the integrity of principle. The Malek Tennis Center, named for Fred Malek, one of the great contributors in all of West Point history, one of the great leaders of West Point, member of the class of 1959.
The West Point rings of MacArthur, Eisenhower, and Bradley, as well as Don Tiller's son of the class of 1959, killed in action in the Persian Gulf War. As well as Bill Train, the first West Pointer killed in Vietnam, having volunteered for service there out of West Point.
So this is the start of the class of 59, 50th reunion. Starting off at the Hilton Hotel in New Jersey on the first night.
Photographer that wants you to smile. Smile, smile, smile.
Everybody smile. I got you. Happy reunion, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy reunion, right. So anyway, John, she didn't answer.
All right, we have a lady in our class that I knew she's the daughter of the dean at West Point when I was a kid in the 5th and 6th grades. And she organizes reunions for the 5th and 6th grade class, which included, from our class at West Point, myself, Dwight Beach, Mike Gillette, Bill Weber, Bobby Tripp, Dick Gates from the class of 60, and Benny Evans from the class of 60.
Right.
And I apologize to anybody who I left anybody out, but this is an amazing. And of course, she married the son of the superintendent when we graduated, Lieutenant General Gar Davidson, and those of us that we have so many connections with from grade school that go back, and so I didn't really understand what a wonderful place this is, West Point, and it reaches in so many different areas, classmates, wives, children. In my case, this is my boyhood. When I come to this reunion, I really feel like I'm home.
There you go. That's wonderful, Sandy.
Thank
Wonderful.
you, Tom.
That's it's one big family.
It's one big family, and I've always felt that way, and it's more and more as I've gotten older.
That's
and I
great.
realize that, wow, was I lucky. Thanks, Dad. He kind of made me come here, and I should have been here, and I knew it. I'm sorry I didn't have the knowledge I have now back then, but I have it now.
Right.
And so, God bless Connie and Dorothea Reeder. Red Reeder's daughter was in this group, and all these people. Daryl Heaster. I could go on. Anybody I left out, I apologize.
What a great way to start this reunion.
It
so
is.
God bless you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
So what did he do? Tell me the story.
2 times he got me for not curling my fingers properly. Totally embarrassed me when I was a plebe.
You did a great job with that lacrosse thing. You'll love it when you see it.
So here's the first evening reception.
Now we will sing the alma mater. It just shows you when you're 72 years old, you can't accept those changes at the last minute. So our 3 young cadets are going to lead us in the alma mater.
And your name is Bill Turpin.
I'm Bill Turpin.
And why are you here?
I'm here for a 50th reunion with the people that I began with 54 years ago. But West Point is halfway between my daughter's home in Maine and my home in Maryland, and it just seemed logical that I would stop and spend a couple of nights at West Point in the 5-star Inn. And I came down to the graveyard because at my family home, our graveyard is in the backyard, and I get to cut the grass around each of the gravestones. And so having that kind of background, I figured I was a shoe-in for the class cemetery officer. And what I was able to do is take a map of the cemetery that was provided here in the office of Dan Londeau, the manager, and superimpose upon that the actual location of each of the graves of our classmates.
That's fantastic. Before you tell me how many of your classmates are at rest here, I want to point you to a guy right behind you who happened to be your soup.
Garrison Holt Davidson.
And my dad.
Yes.
And so he's in, that number there is D24. He's there with my mom, Verone Davidson. And the reason he loved that location is because he's right at the end of the line, which has a number or many of the professors from the academic board, including my father-in-law, Bill Bessel, who's at the end of that line.
Marvelous.
And a number of others. My dad had huge respect for the academic board. When he came here, as you know, he changed the curriculum somewhat over their objection.
We had such respect for your dad. He was just an amazing man. Handsome, beyond recognition, always a smile, and very bright. And the things that he did, he was a natural leader and we were natural followers.
Well, it made a great combination. He loved the class of '59. He loved his boys. He was proud of what they did in their careers, and he followed it very closely all his life.
And I understand Bill Train was very closely associated with your dad.
He was.
From Korea.
He was. And in fact, General Train told me later that he was in a position when the Chinese came into Korea, and he was afraid my dad was about to get cut off and probably killed, that he personally gave the orders, which he had the power to do, to move him back towards Seoul to build a defensive line at Seoul, and impliedly maybe saved his life. So, and his son, of course, Bill Train, was a good personal friend of mine and is at rest here. I believe the first West Pointer killed in Vietnam.
So. He was a cousin of mine, too.
Right. So
very interesting.
Many family connections. So tell me about your classmates here, Bill, and how many are at rest.
Yesterday they had a training class here of yearlings, groups of about 20 each, and about 6 or 8 groups around the cemetery where they were being introduced to and acquainted with the cemetery. And I began talking with one of the officers who was going to do some of the instruction, and I mentioned that family members were buried here too, and he says, yes, this really is a way of life.
Yes, it is.
And I thought that was a good observation. There are, I think, probably 33 to 35 classmates of mine from '59 who are buried here. Any West Point graduate can be buried here, and but other people they're running out of space, and so they can have. One day I was wandering in here and I came upon the grave of Winfield Scott. I stood right up and I said, Scott's fixed opinion from my plebe year.
Some things never go away.
Yes, that's right. One of the very interesting things is that General Bill Train chose to be buried in the plot right beside his son. And so it's a family matter, and a row or 2 rows behind there and one to the side is young Bill Train's mother's brother, who was my mother's first husband. They were married on June the 9th. He was killed on August the 9th he was a pursuit pilot, and he never pulled out of a power dive.
Right.
So at any rate, Bill and I grew up together, and then it was a great shock to open the Stars and Stripes in 1962 in Germany and find that he'd been killed in Vietnam.
Right.
I was told because I did not graduate, I could not be buried here. This was by Dan Londeau, the manager. But he said, your father is a graduate, and if you'd like to be buried here, if you had his grave moved up here and put in, up to 9 people can be put in a single grave. And with going down 9 feet and having 3 or 4 coffins, and then the rest be cremated.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, very interesting. I don't think that's going to happen, but at any rate, it's very nice. And what a magnificent place to visit during lifetime, and what a nice place to spend eternity. We have one classmate who has a monument here, but is not buried here. his body was never recovered, Mike Nash. And he was a pilot over in Vietnam. And it's a cenotaph. And he's a pilot, and the tree trunk, the tree root has grown up underneath his stone, and it has keeled it over to the point it looks like an aircraft taking off.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that great? God took a hand.
Indeed.
That's great. Do you know how many of your classmates were actually KIA?
15,
15.
give or take one.
Mm-hmm. Mostly in Vietnam?
All in Vietnam.
All in Vietnam, right.
Yes, Bill was the first, and Rocky, I think, was the last
Right.
to die.
You want to just talk about him for a second? I was going to go find his plaque over there in the central area, but would you just talk about him for a second?
Indeed. Rocky was an unusual man in that he always had a smile on his face, and he had a great devotion to his God and his religion. He was Catholic. And he went to Vietnam and served his tour over there. He did some work with orphanages while he was there. And toward the end, right at the very end, they had a skirmish, and he was captured. And he was kept in confinement for 3 years or more. They put him in a cage. They paraded him around to villages where villagers poked at him with sticks and so forth. There were 2 or 3 other people who were also captives at that time. At one point, Rocky did manage to escape, but he didn't get very far before they caught him, and they punished him severely and put him back in the cage again. But ultimately, whenever things would go wrong, he would start singing "God Bless America." And that really angered his captors, because they were trying to brainwash him, and it didn't work. And so when his example of resisting to the utmost was what ultimately earned him recognition and the presentation of the Medal of Honor by the President. And that was a grand affair. 100 classmates attended and lined up on the front steps of the White House for a photograph with then Chief of Staff of the Army, General Shinseki. And so we all were provided with a copy of that by the White House, and so we can keep it in prominent display to remember us of what a fun and fine class we have.
And I understand that at his end, the other captors heard his last voice singing "God Bless America."
I believe it. I believe it. And what a wonderful occasion, the presentation of the plaque in North area was. For those of us who attended it.
Right.
That was fun. And some people have become honorary classmates. 2 men have become honorary classmates because of the outstanding work they did in trying to get the Medal of Honor put through for Rocky.
Really? Who were they? Were they from other classes? Or?
No, they were not. They're not West Pointers at all.
He was from New Jersey?
I think so. His father had been in the Army, and there's a picture of Rocky's father presenting him with a combat infantryman's badge when he earned it.
Very cool.
Yeah, father, I think, was retired from the military. So he's quite a guy. We have 2 medals of honor in our class.
Oh, really? Who's the other?
The other one is Roger.
And what did he do?
Roger Donlin. He was the first Medal of Honor from Vietnam. He was in the Special Forces, and they had a defensive perimeter around this little village, and they were put under heavy attack, and it went on most of the night long, and he would rush from place to place to place, keeping things going, and was himself wounded several times. The upshot was that he survived, and that he was presented the Medal of Honor by the President.
Right. That's not bad. 2 out of a class is not so bad.
That's right. And that's why I guess they got the motto, "None so fine as 59," except I coined a new one last night. It's "Take a 59er to a diner."
So, Mo, give me some of your perspective about reading your 50-year book, and kind of what perspective does it give you on military and the career and your classmates and so forth?
Well, I was impressed as a person who had a short career in the Army of the heroism found in my classmates throughout the Corps. All of the class, they served in one way or another, but there were so many things that happened by chance, but that they were in positions where they were. That you had the. I was impressed personally and proud of the classmates who served so heroically, and some weren't even classmates, or some of them didn't even graduate. The first Medal of Honor winner was a classmate who left in the middle of his cadet career, went into the service, went to Vietnam, and because of a very, very extreme set of circumstances, became the first Medal of Honor winner in Vietnam.
Well, what was his name?
Roger Donnelly.
Roger Donnelly.
But it's just I think it doesn't make us any different than any other West Point class. I think in many ways it shows that we're, our class is like all the other classes that serve in wartime and in peacetime.
So welcome to West Point again, and my name is Cindy Polka, and I'm a tour guide here at Quarters 100. This wonderful, fabulous mansion that I know you've seen before, but it was built in 1820 for $6,670. And at the Salinas there, I don't know, but when we come in, I'm going to show you something that will show you that first suit. Because I don't want to quote, I don't want to. I have a historian in there. But the original structure had 12 rooms and the luxury of running water. So that was kind of interesting. This front door and the lock and key actually, like this one behind, are original to the 1820 construction. This front porch was built in 1860, and then the side porches that run along that way were just added on a little bit later. Gas was installed in 1881 and electricity in 1911. It is the oldest building that has been continuously housed and used on West Point. About 10,000 people tour this wonderful mansion each year. And most all the paintings and artifacts inside are museum pieces. Actually, they're owned by the West Point Museum that we have located over in Highland Falls, right outside the gate. So I was telling you about the bronze plaque. As we go in, there'll be a big bronze plaque over there on the right, and each little placard are the names of the soups that have lived here. So we have tour guides in each room, and they'll give you a little information on each area that you'll see, and we're so glad you're here, and welcome to West Point. God bless you.
A husband and a son in Iraq right now,
sure do,
Cindy?
sir.
God bless you.
Thank you. And my husband is department head here of Geography and Environmental Engineering, so it's exciting for him to get back over there and get dirty a little bit.
Oh, that's great. Good
So
for you. I'm sure it keeps
I'm very
you
proud.
keeps you a little nervous.
It does. It really does.
Before, a lot of people don't realize, before that, he really enjoyed coming to West Point and painting the views and the things that went on here.
Go.
I'm traveling around Germany in the summer of 1960, and I go to a little town up in the sort of north middle of Germany, Bad Hersfeld, and I have a dress where I think my classmate Nick Crouchu might be, and I go to his quarters, and his wife Chris is there, and she says, he'll be back very shortly. They've just been out on maneuvers, The filthiest guy I have ever seen comes walking in the door, and as soon as he walks in the door, he starts talking about, well, their tanks is over here, and our tanks is over there, and we shot them all.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
And he did do
that
that.
one.
And my colleague who was with me, who was a civilian, he sort of looked a little sweaty and white-faced, and he said, thank God these guys are taking care of us.
They're on our side.
It was great. I forgot that you came by.
It was terrific.
And you know I've been doing some work with the Ukrainian military, so
Right.
we've been comparing notes periodically.
Speaking Russian to
Great,
each other.
great. No good can come out of that threesome, I can tell you that. Whatever you guys are,
You're taking a big time picture there.
whatever you guys are talking about.
And I'm really getting more credit than I do because I'm passing on information. You know, Pete's a great leader. He makes difficult situations easy. Whenever you have a problem, we just turn to Pete and say, how do we do it? Pete, he outlines it, and there's it's done. So he can see things like that. Anybody that's ever had class with Pete knows what I'm talking about. I mean, he's very good at that. And then the backbone, the people that are going to come after me, and I'll call you individually to make sure you come up in order. They're the ones that do the work. And they're all great. And there's a wide breadth of support and a depth of support in this class, which is tremendous, which makes us the best class I think that ever graduated from here. Of course, I'm prejudiced. But I think it's true. I mean, the smaller is better. But as I called them up, I did want to point out two guys. We call them the Class of 59 mailroom. That's Frank Campbell and Art Griffin. Not only did they work overtime on this reunion, but you can ask their wives. They won't work overtime all the time. And they really do provide this basic support for the whole class. I'd like everyone to give a round of applause for Frank. And with that, I'll have Art. Here's Art. Okay, Art, you're up. And the other guys, move a little closer so we can save time. That's true. It's going to be Art, Frank, Sandy, Sue Breeze, Tom Russell, and Don Tiller.
Okay, my time is brief. I've already been instructed not to stay too long. But just to go back, we had several people who had to cancel out at the last minute, and I'd like to recognize them. Paul Elias is recovering, and I have a session with Paul, and he's doing better. Will Wright just got out of the hospital. He's recovering from a rare nerve disease. Greg Tanlight's wife was taken ill at the last minute, and also Bill Schwartz. Now, most everyone is here. If they're not retired, they ought to be thinking about retirement. And I got an email that you ought to know about. Rich Clark sends his regrets that he was not able to make the reunion, and he's in Afghanistan and won't be back until July sometime.
And here it is. I look at the bottom and it says, Chuck Garvey, company C1, for the staff. I finally got it returned, and I would say if you wore it today, you'd probably get slugged. I think you need to do something to whiten it up a little bit. All right, let me just say that Band of Brothers is now 7 years old. We started it in 2002. We had 24 deaths in our class since 2002. Since our 45th reunion, we've had 18 of them. 57 classmates are involved in Band of Brothers directly. We have 30 CQs, including 6 battalion CQs, and we have 27 regional reps. Now let me tell you, so that's 57. I make 58, so if I had one more volunteer, that's 59. Okay, let me tell you, the basic purpose of Band of Brothers is to support one another like you're my brother, and you are my brothers. I don't have any real brothers, blood brothers, but you're my brothers, all of you. And your wives are my sister-in-law.
Our football coach expressed a while ago, back in the early part of March, we had a fantastic weekend here in which all the past lacrosse coaches were represented. Marsh Touchstone, of course, wasn't there, but his daughter was, and Dick Adele was there by video, but it was a fantastic weekend. We're having another opportunity tomorrow, and this is an opportunity for the coach and the team to recognize people in our class who played on on two historic lacrosse teams, the 58 team, which was a national champion both in college and the club ranks, and the 59 team, which was a tri-champion. So there's going to be a little deal at halftime, and I'm trying to orchestrate and coordinate that little deal. So I want, rather than take your time, I want the following guys to meet me up there at the corner doorway at the end of this thing, and I'll tell you what you need to know about tomorrow. And I assume, Tom, that there is a bus to take those of you who want to go to the game after the review, from the review up to the stadium. If you signed up, there's supposed
One
to be a bus.
before lunch, and the same bus will come back and get the rest that go after lunch.
One before lunch, and the same bus will come back and take those up after lunch. The recognition is scheduled for halftime at the game tomorrow against the University of Pennsylvania. So the following guys, please meet me in the corner. Sandy Beach, Ray Burkett, Frank Campbell, Bill Fitzgerald, Mike Gillette, Bob Howe, and Paul Tomachek. Thank you.
And how genuine I was in expressing my appreciation to him for the support he's given us. Had a very interesting exchange just a couple of minutes ago when the commandant came up. And the superintendent was talking about the parade tomorrow, and the commandant said, well, I don't know, the weather forecast is pretty bleak, you know, and we don't want to have them have their full dress uniforms get wet for graduation.
We heard that before.
That brought a certain smirk to my face. But the superintendent said, is it white over gray? Is that a... Full dress over white, sir. No, that's not what you're going to do. It's some other uniform.
Dress gray over white.
Dress gray over white.
Tomorrow, yeah. In any event, there's some uniform that if it gets wet,
Disintegrates, huh?
you're sworn to secrecy. It's not the end of the earth. So the superintendent coached the commandant that that was going to be the uniform. And if it was 50-50 to be rain, we were going to have the parade anyway. I have a hunch if it isn't pouring down rain, we're going to have a parade. So, but it's reflective of the attitude that he's had and the support he's provided us. Okay, now we'll move along through these next.
2009, some of whom I've had the great privilege and really the honor to spend some time in a battle command class and at Gettysburg and some other activities this past semester, and also the class officers of 2009. And then at the end here, I'll turn it back over to Pete for a presentation to the class president of 2009. The history of this, it started informally, as a lot of traditions do here at the Academy. Started with a class in 1945 who thought it would be a good idea to present bars at commissioning to their 50-year classes, so they did that. Over 59 of our classmates do the 15-mile march back, and 6 do in addition to that, 59 do march back from the ski slope on in to Main Post. Well, could I ask everybody to stand up who was on the march back? Wait a second. I did that for a reason. First, to recognize you, and secondly, that was the last of the 15-year march back. There is no more. So now it's a shorter march back here. And Pete Dawkins was here as our class president, gave a inspiring and thoughtful presentation on leadership, again, that transcended the years and connected with the class of 2009. Immediately following that, we went out with a number of our classmates who were here over into the ballroom and participated in the branch pinning ceremony for the class of 2009. And I finally, really last week, as has been our custom, we have what we call a Battle Command Conference. Here 50 years after our own generation. Magic.
Program is, and I think it's helpful, you get a sense that it's not just a cocktail party every once in a while. Our aspiration is that it grows from year to year in having more involvements, and things like the Leadership Book Project, where really there gets to be some engagement of substance between the two. And this is to the West Point class of 2009.
1959, which is no small deal for us. Second, the flag represented our identity and helped forge that identity and what we'll accomplish in the future.
So it's the evening of the second day. It's Friday evening, and back at the hotel. And we're hoping for good weather tomorrow so there can be a parade. The weather is not very promising, so we'll all say some prayers and hope that tell me about the magnificent book that you've produced for this 50th reunion. How long have you been doing it? What did it take? What have you done and how have you done it?
I've been working on it for about 5 years, right around after the 45th anniversary of the reunion. Pete called me up. I agreed to do it. The planning and the thinking process took a couple years. Then I got down to farming tasks out, getting copy back, and trying to interleave it, putting it into final form. And I would have to say that I've personally been working on it at least 2 years, maybe 2.5, on a full-time basis.
Wow, and how many classmates are in it?
There are 729 people in it. It represents everybody who entered West Point with us in 1955. It represents about 40, I believe is the number, classmates from more senior classes who joined us. And it represents 4 honorary classmates. And everybody is mentioned.
And now you're getting ready to do part 2.
Now we're going to do part 2. We'll be the first class to do it in 2 volumes. But when I originally planned it, 1 volume would have been too ponderous.
Right.
So I floated the idea, let's do it in 2 volumes, and the class committee basically said, go with your gut. So with that sort of carte blanche, it was a done deal.
That's fantastic.
So the first volume was strictly biographical and fairly data oriented. The second book is going to be a lot of fun. It'll be anecdotes, vignettes, and
that will be a lot of fun.
It'll be a fun one.
Yeah, great. Well, congratulations. God bless you for doing this for your classmates.
Thanks ever so much.
Wonderful, and I'd love my copy. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go get it for you if I can find my son.
All right.
Where are you sitting?
There you go. Now,
Right here.
Now it's on the floor.
You got a wife with you?
Yeah, come on, have a seat.
Create a bag of hats and hadn't reserved one and wanted to see if we could have one for you. See me between 7 and 8 tomorrow morning.
There was one thing as I got going this afternoon and I started to get the hook, there was one more thing I wanted to touch on. We've started a tradition. Whenever we finish a practice, whenever we finish a workout, we come together as a team, we say 1, 2, 3, stay together, 1, 2, 3, bring it back. Now when we say stay together, what we're talking about is what that bondage is. We're together. Now we're not just together with one another. We're going to start a tradition. Okay, check that. I'm telling the guys we're going to revisit a tradition that I put on Colonel Blake. So if he didn't do this, don't correct me. Before we leave post, before a home game or for a road trip, we're going to meet at Battle Monument. That's the last place we'll go. And we're going to touch one another. We're going to touch at Battle Monument. We're going to say 1, 2, 3, stay together. When we say stay together, we're talking about certainly one another, that team, this team, but this team connected to its past, this team connected to its future, this team connected to those expectations, to that greatness. Now the other thing we say 1, 2, 3, bring it back. And what we're talking about bringing back is winning football. Bringing winning football back to the United States Military Academy where it belongs. It's been gone too long. Okay? And we got
our superintendent. And Tom said he would like to have just a minute or two to share with us collectively what his father thought about the class of 1959. Tom?
He didn't go to West Point.
Thank you, Pete.
No, he didn't.
A lot of folks say, why are you doing this? Why are you here? Let me just take a second to tell you why and who he was, just to remind you who your suit was, because you were his boys. He loved you guys. It started as early as one day. He said, there's a plebe here. He always went down. By the way, he was class of 27. He was the football coach in the 30s. Beat Navy, beat everybody, except Notre Dame. Couldn't beat Notre Dame. One of the most successful football coaches in the history of the military academy. Patton's engineer during World War II, the invasion of North Africa, the invasion of Sicily, the invasion of southern France. Presided over the first war crimes trial, where people were actually hanged for having murdered down American civilians. Went to Korea, saved our bacon when we were in the Busan perimeter, set up the perimeter, let it break out and captured 3,000 of the enemy. Changed to the infantry from the engineers, led the 24th Division to the Yellow River, where the Chinese came in. But his dream in life was to be superintendent of West Point. So when he got the call to come to West Point, it was unbelievable. And you became his boys. I remember he would go down to the football practice to see the plebes, because he wanted to know who was coming along. And he came back one day and he said, is there anybody really good out there? And he said, well, there's just one guy, Dawkins. He's going to be somebody, so just keep your eye on him. And I was at Williams College. I didn't elect to go into the military. I didn't want to go where people shot bullets at each other. I thought that was not a wise choice.
You went into corporate law.
And the history of sons of 3- and 4-star generals wasn't very good, so I went my own way. I went to Williams College. When I was at Williams, Charlie Dunkel came up and said, you ought to see this guy Dawkins. He was a friend of mine. He was a classmate at Cranbrook. So when you're at West Point next time, see him. And in those days, the football team suited up right outside of quarters 100. So I went down there, and this football team came out, and I stopped this guy Dawkins and said, hi, I'm Tom Davidson. Charlie Dunkel said to say hi, so hi. And I thought, like most people, he would disappear. They said, well, wait here till practice is over. We'll come back and we'll go get a Coke. So we did that. That started a friendship. He said, where should we go for a Coke? And I said, why don't we go through the back door here? Oh, geez, you're part of that. So we became good friends. He would come over. We would have fun. We would sit in the living room. Once he came in his grays, I said, why don't you get comfortable? Come on up to my dad's room, get a sport shirt, take that gray stuff off, and relax. He said, no. I couldn't do that. Your dad might come home. I said, no, he's gone for 4 hours. Don't worry about it. So we were sitting in the living room, and sure enough, the door opened. And here comes the old man. He takes one look at Pete, and he says, Mr. Dawkins, great shirt. That started our relationship. Well, nobody cared more about the military academy than my father. When he left you, he went to become commanding general of the 7th Army in Europe, just at the time when we thought 40,000 Russian tanks would be coming across the German plain. So he had the 7th Army ready. It was when the Berlin Wall went up, and he said we came that close to going to World War III. And from then on and until he retired, nothing was closer to his heart than West Point. He dreamed about it, he worried about it, worried especially about the honor code. What has happened to the honor code? Why is there cheating? Those things went straight to his heart. And until he died, until well into his 80s, he would spend all his time reading, writing, trying to publish about West Point. And my mother would say, Gar, why are you doing this? Nobody cares what you think. But you know what? The principles he stood for, the principles he believed, are the principles that you all have lived by.
and what makes West Point such a special place. So I come here a lot, not having paid my dues on the battlefield like you. I'm going to figure out how to pay my dues. I'm trying to help fund the Oral History Project. We met with the security people today. We're trying to help do what we can do. And I bring my grandchildren. And every time I come to West Point, I bring them, not to make them cadets, boys or girls, but to show them this place of honor and virtue and courage and brotherhood. And it's in my soul. I think as much as probably anybody in this room. So that's why I come back. That's why I video this. That's why I want to be part of this, to honor my dad and to honor you. And he would say, were he to look down tonight on you and on the accomplishments of this class, especially those who lost their lives and those who haven't, he would be very proud of his boys. And so that's why I come back. I'm representing him. He loves you guys. He'll be with you always. And it's my little way of giving back. There's one more little story I want to tell that I think shows who your soup was. As I said, when I come back to West Point, I stop and I pick up my grandkids in New Jersey and take them to West Point. We see parades. When Sandra Day O'Connor got the Thayer Award, I thought, here's a woman getting a Thayer Award from a woman who was the first captain in front of 4,000 guys. That'll never happen again. So I brought 30 girls from my granddaughter's class up here, and I bring my grandsons. And now it's a cold, rainy day in Washington. We're down by the Washington Monument. I have all my grandkids. And I thought, what should we do? Well, we're going to go into the Museum of History here. And as we cross the threshold, my grandson Cole, who heard about Gargar until he was up to here with it, walks across the threshold and he says, Poppy, where is Gargar in here? I said, Cole, he's not in here. He said, oh, yes, he is. Where is he? I said, Cole, he's not here. Poppy? All right, so I look up on the wall and said, Civil War, first floor, Revolutionary War, second floor, World War II, third floor. And I thought, all right, if he's here, he's on the third floor. Talk about the hand of God. So I up the first escalator, 4 kids trailing behind, up the second escalator, and the third escalator, and as we come over, my God, there's a new construction project called West Point in the Making of America. And it had this huge plastic sheet in front of it, and I went over and I pulled the sheet back, and guess who's the first guy I saw? Thomas Davidson, Dwight Eisenhower, Douglas MacArthur, and one other, I think the Air Force general. And what it said, somebody had done his homework. It said, based on what he did, particularly in changing the curriculum, which was ongoing while you were here, and it didn't really come to fruition until after you left, that the historians are now saying that Gar Davidson is the greatest superintendent in the history of West Point, and I think you'll start seeing that come out. So your soup was that man. He loved you, he honored the price you paid, and you're carrying that forward to the future, and I'm sure you are for your children and your grandchildren. So God bless you. Thank you for letting me come here and be a tiny part of this. Good night.
And this is a personal thing, but it took a long time.
What's so funny about that?
It took a long time to prepare this reunion. We've spoken about it before. Actually, 5 years, really right after the 45th we began. And a lot of the world has really changed in that period of time. And during the majority of the time we were preparing, I was vice chairman of the largest financial company on earth. Citi, remember Citi? Remember when we used to have Citi? 350,000 people all over the earth. It's actually one of the sad stories of losing that institution, which is gone. But during that time was when we were gearing up and working to put the foundation for this reunion together. And my assistant, Christy Fink, who's here with us tonight, with her daughter Caitlin, who's a second lieutenant in the United States Army, going to medical school, and will be commissioned promoted to captain in a year. Great, we're delighted to have her here. Her son Colin. But Christy was my everything. And so she got to know everyone on the reunion committee. In fact, this is true, after about a year and a half, nobody called me anymore. They just called Christy. And whatever they needed, she got done. And that's not an over-exaggeration. So, for what she cared about us and all that she did for us, we wanted to give her a memento. So, Christy, if you would come on.
Tom, I just have to let you know one thing. Before I came to this wonderful school, I attended Wesleyan for 2 years, one of the little three, the year of Williams and the third is Amherst. I was on the radio station there. And so when the great cadet radio station KDET opened up, they asked me to introduce the superintendent. And I thought, wow, this is clean, this is really something else. But then I've done it for 2 years, I know what I'm doing. Nobody else has ever been on the radio before. And your father came into the studio. I showed him the seat next to the microphone where he would make his welcoming speech. And in my greatest radio voice, I said, "Gentlemen of the Corps, the Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, General Jerrison H. Davidson." And thus began a fantastic career. Ladies and gentlemen, Super Tom.